Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on this Thursday. We're excited to have another guest with us to talk about his career in the entertainment industry. But before we get started, I do want to remind everyone that you can see our full guest lineup on our website. It's www.reachandteach.rocks, ROCKS. We've had a tremendous lineup of guests. We have about 4 more guests left with this fall interview series. You can see all of the videos on our YouTube channel, so check them out there. And also, we're going to have a Q&A session. So if you have questions for our guests today, please drop them into the comment section or into the chat, and we will make sure and get your questions answered. So let's go ahead and get started. Dan, it's so nice to have you with us.
Hey, April. Thanks so much. Happy to be here.
Yes, we are excited to have you. And if you wouldn't mind, please just take a few minutes to introduce yourself, tell us who you are, what you do, and where you're from.
Yeah. So I'm Dan McGlinn, East Coast born and raised, living outside of Philadelphia. And I graduated college in 2018 from the University of Notre Dame out in the Midwest, and did mechanical engineering there. Really had a proclivity towards math, loved math in high school, and decided to go into engineering. Also loved design, using both sides of my brain, left and right, creative and math. Worked on a lot of projects at TAIT that have been awesome. I love music, so it's a match made in heaven. And a fun fact is I don't drink coffee.
Oh, that is a fun fact. Fun fact for you, I don't drink coffee either.
Oh.
So.
Are you a tea person?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm from the South, so I'm a sweet tea person. That's how we roll. Well, thank you for introducing yourself. You are our first engineer that we've had on our interview series, so we're excited about that. Definitely want to learn more about your career. So could you tell us what your day-to-day activities look like when you go into work? What do you do?
Totally. So one of the best parts about what I do is I work in a studio in the design department. That studio is 7 of us with a studio lead. And every day, to start off the day, we meet and go over what we're doing that day. We work on all kinds of elements of shows. And really each day we have to talk about how those elements interact. So the flow of these shows goes from project manager to project development to design. So my studio and design, we custom build things for these big name artists, and they want to have the biggest thing that they can do, the best thing, the thing that no one's seen. So most of our work is custom designed. We're building it one time, sending it on the road with the artist, and they go do their show, whether it's a couple months, a couple of years, that's on us to design. So every morning we get to the studio table, break it down, go over our responsibilities of the day, see who's going to interact with who, and see how things will work best. It's a lot of figuring out schedule, where the flow is going to come from. And then a lot of my day is deep work about sitting at the computer, going in CAD programs and software and figuring out how to make this thing work, whether that is something on the ground that's moving, something hanging over people's heads that's really heavy, and how we're going to hang it. That's what I consider the deep work, and then the meetings and hashing out all build into a final product.
Yeah. So when students or anyone really goes to a concert and they see all of these big elaborate stages and special effects and artists hanging from the ceiling, that's what you work on, right?
Yeah. TAIT Towers is the biggest in the world, and we do the biggest names in rock and roll. From your Taylor Swift and Drake to Post Malone. We work a lot with Cirque du Soleil, and then a lot of things on the permanent installation side at theme parks is another aspect of the company. So that's much longer term and a very different scope of work, because those projects can take years, versus on the concert side, the reason TAIT is so great is because of the short timelines and the amount that we can do and the quality of the work.
That's incredible. And to think about the things that you design, the things that you build, they have to travel well. So all of that has to go into the design process, I would assume, as well, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. Most people say, okay, so your client is Taylor Swift. And while they are the ones that want the show, our client is really the people that are using what we're making. And that's the people that have to bring it into the stadium, auditorium, arena, set it up in a few hours, and then come in when the show's done and take it down. Those are the people that we're building for, because they're the ones that are going to interact with the handholds and need to be up and down in a few hours. And so it's all about speed, agility, being able to pack in a truck and ship. Those are huge design features of what we have to do.
Honestly, it sounds like you have a pretty awesome job, just to be honest.
It is great. It is great. And a perfect blend of music, engineering, and design, that it's a nice little niche.
Yes. So can you tell us a little bit about your journey from high school to where you are now? What did that look like? What did your path hold for you?
So in high school, I always had a proclivity towards math. And not necessarily my favorite thing per se, but I knew that I could work hard at it and was pretty good at it. And because of this, engineering is what I was drawn to, specifically mechanical. I knew it would be tough, as most people do when they hear mechanical engineering, but the doors that it would open and the opportunities that would allow with a degree would be awesome. And for me, that was worth it, knowing that I could do it. The great thing about college too was I could explore some other passions. So I took classes in the arts and design. I really like ceramics. And then during college, I worked in a variety of different industries, which I totally recommend to all students to really get a feel for what you like. Work in a city one summer, it's only 3 months. Work in middle of nowhere one summer. Having that variety of experiences can really help you hone in, so that when you're choosing a career after college, you know what you want, you have some idea of what you don't want, and that's just as important.
Yeah, that is great advice. Because so many times we don't maybe know exactly what we want to do with our future. So, testing the waters, getting experience in all different areas, that is amazing advice for students. So thank you for that. So I know this journey probably wasn't always easy for you. Everyone runs into struggles at one point or another. So could you talk a little bit about maybe an obstacle that you have encountered? How did you overcome that? And what advice would you have for students overcoming obstacles too?
Yeah, funny enough, one of my biggest obstacles was finding the job that I really wanted to do after school. And I'm happy to say that I found that, and TAIT has worked out amazingly. But it was really tough to find this job. A lot of times because TAIT wasn't coming to Notre Dame to be at the career fair, and I had to go seek them out. And it took a lot of networking and kind of finding my niche. A lot of people just say, oh, I'm going to go work at the company that's at the career fair. It's an easy path. I really want to do.
Yeah, I think we lost you there for just a second. Could you just repeat the last maybe 5 seconds or so of what you said? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. It was so important for me to find a really great opportunity rather than going into a job and spending 3 years there when I wasn't really passionate about it, and wasn't feeling like I was applying my skills well.
Yeah.
So overcoming that obstacle to do the networking, put in the work to get the job that I wanted turned out great.
I love that you mentioned networking. I think that's a skill that we don't realize is so important to the success of any career path that you choose. So definitely good advice there. So another question that we have for you is, what is something that you wish you would have learned at a younger age?
Oh, that's a great question.
I mean, you're a young guy anyways, but think back to when you were in high school. What is something you wish you would have known that now maybe you know?
Yeah. I think the first thing that comes to mind is being well-rounded. In high school, there's such a push to be well-rounded and do everything. And be the most well-rounded person so that you can go to the best school, and the societal pressure to be well-rounded and succeed in everything. But I think I have a great quote actually, and it talks about the best secret in life is to be really good at one thing and interested in a lot of things. And if you have something that you're passionate about and can put in time to and be dedicated to, there's a way to make that your job. And you just have to go find it, because there's going to be a huge group of people that are also passionate about it.
Yes, absolutely. So last question, and then we're going to open it up to questions from students. So what would be some actionable advice that you could give students right now that they could do while they're still in high school? Maybe they have an interest in the entertainment industry or in engineering in general. What is something they could go out and do today to prepare them for that career?
Yeah, I think that's super important in themed entertainment, especially because there's so many people that love themed entertainment and want to get into it. And my biggest question is, show me what you've done. There's the classic story of, I love this, I want to be working in it. What have you done to get your hands dirty and to get into that field that shows your passion? Like, what groups are you working with? And so if you want to do that, start reaching out to people. Make a LinkedIn and message people once a week and set up a once a month coffee chat for 30 minutes. And doing that 12 times in a year, very easy to do, and will go a super long way if you stay in touch with them and make them permanent contacts in your network.
Absolutely. And, LinkedIn is something that many students probably aren't involved with, but the earlier that you can start building that network, I think is wonderful advice. And to know it is a social platform, but it's a business social platform that you can use to really further your career. Yeah. So we have a couple of questions for you. The first one is, what is the most creative project that you have ever worked on?
So that's a good question. I think the great part is that every project has creativity because it's the first time. We're building it for the first time ever. My favorite project that I worked on that TAIT has done was for Ariana Grande's recent tour, because I had an awesome opportunity to follow the tour for a little bit and go out with the show and see it in action and problem solve a lot of things that came up on the road that always come up, and really figure those out. So it was up to me, and super great opportunity. Had to be really creative and ship stuff in and get out the drill and everything. So yeah, that was
in fact, that's one of the next questions that we have on our list is, do you get to see your designs in action? So being able to see that take place, what does that feel like for you when you see it come to life?
It's an amazing feeling, especially if it was long hours and grueling. But yeah, I don't get to go to every show necessarily, but every show gets set up in our shop completely, and a lot of rehearsals happen there. So we would get to see those.
I mean, that's awesome That's awesome to be able to see your show come to life right there in where you work. I mean, I can't imagine that being one of your daily responsibilities, getting to work on something like that. Okay, so another question that we have is, what happens with the designs that you create after the tour is over? That's a great question.
That is a question that not many people think about. So that's props to whoever asked that. A lot of different things happen. Some shows that know they're going to go back out later, especially some of the older bands that do shows every year, put their stuff in storage. A lot of the things come back to us, and a lot of the standard items, such as the decks and stages, come back to us. And then a lot of them that are custom get recycled, and it's mostly aluminum parts, so they can all get recycled, along with so many things in our shop. So it's a lot of different paths, but everything has a home at the end of the day.
Yeah, that is a great question. It's something that I've never thought about. Okay, so the next question that we have is, do you get to develop ideas from scratch, or do your clients come in with ideas that you create?
Another really good question. That's a bit of a mix. The concepts are brought to us, especially the artistic look and feel of the show. Here's the story we want to tell throughout the concert. But when it comes down to the machines that we're building for that to happen, that's completely up to us. We can iterate and use, if we're trying to pull something across, we could try with rope, try with bungee, all different kinds of things to make that work. And when it works, we can go forward with a design that we designed to meet the client's wishes, the creative side of it.
Yeah.
It's a healthy mix of prototyping on our end and trying to figure it out and meeting what the client wants artistically.
So I know with the creative process, there's probably a lot of redesigning, maybe going back to the drawing board. How long does that process typically take for an average project?
There's no average in the world of concert touring, but it can take anywhere from weeks to months. Rarely is there concert touring that on our end is over a year, but it all depends on size of the show, how many sites, who's involved, so many different factors. And it's a tough question to answer, especially because on the artist side, their team is working on this for months, if not years ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
So in my little world, it's generally months.
Yeah. So one question that I did forget to ask you is, what are some careers that you've discovered along the way that maybe you didn't know existed when you were in high school?
Everything is the short answer, but everything that you use daily involved a group of people working really hard about the design. In my world, layout of the concert, choreography, the lights within a hotel is something that I've worked on in the past, and that artistic layout. And just because something's not in my world or my daily use cycle, it doesn't mean there's not thousands of people that are involved. So like ghostwriters, marketing coaches, roadies that travel with shows. Those are some that come to mind off the top of my head. But yeah, it's amazing how many things are out there. Especially, I've worked at a couple other companies and interned at places that make everything from latches to lights to packages, and you name it. So everything that you touch, a lot of people have put thought into.
Yeah. So a question that just came to mind is, when you are designing and developing these things, working for another company, not for yourself, does the company hold a patent on these designs, or are you able to claim rights to these things that you create? How does that work in your world?
As part of TAIT, I am working for TAIT. So TAIT is in charge of some patents. I can't totally talk about that, mostly because of lack of knowledge, but there are expertise.
Yeah. So let me get back to student questions. The next question that we have is, let's see, this is a good one. What is the most important skill you need in order to become an engineer or to work in engineering?
A lot of dedication to school, but also being able to work with other people, because being an engineer, you have only so much power. You can show the math, you can do it, but you're always going to be working with a team and collaborating, and being able to talk with other people and manage other people in a social setting, and all of those skills that people always say are so important go a long way. Especially if you want to do engineering, you'll be able to stand out amongst your peers if you have the really good hardy skills of being able to manage and interact and everything. So I'd say that's number one.
Yeah, and that's something that those skills are transferable to any career that you pursue. So definitely not just engineering, but thinking about any careers that are out there is being able to develop your communication, your teamwork, your collaboration skills, I think is definitely key. Okay, so next question is, do you take, well, I think you've already kind of answered this, but maybe you could explain it a little bit more. Do you take transportation into consideration when you're designing the product?
Yes, yeah, and I can go into that a little more. We take every kind of transportation into consideration, and we need to know that ahead of time, because depending on the different arenas or stadiums, where in the world the show is going, it's going to travel differently. It could be traveling on a plane. It could be traveling on a cargo ship. It could be traveling in a truck the whole time. And all of those have different sizes that go with them and different requirements and different safety codes in Europe. And so everything kind of comes together, and you have to understand the priorities. What's the most important, what is definitely not going to be able to change no matter what we do on our end, and where is the show going, and really take all those into consideration when you're just starting to map it out.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I'm sure there's a long checklist of things that you have to consider before you even begin your designs.
Yeah, and that comes with experience, really, which I'm on the early end of and still learning so much.
Okay, so the next question that we have is, I've thought about engineering as a career path before, but I've never thought about engineering in entertainment. Where is a place that I could find out more information about this path?
That's a good question that I might not be the person to answer. But I do have so many close friends that are really passionate about entertainment, doing engineering, and are in a lot of groups with Universal Studios and Disney, to name a couple big theme parks, and the Imagineers. Everyone knows really kind of who that is at Disney. They're the ones that come up with the amazing ideas. But I think my biggest advice would just be to go on LinkedIn and start getting in touch with people. And it's such a small community of engineers and themed entertainment that everyone knows everyone. It's really inclusive culture. People love it. They're all super passionate about it. So just poke around the internet, LinkedIn, names will come up, and you'll start seeing themes and who's involved with who.
Absolutely. And I can imagine how fun that would be to work for Disney. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that, except for doing concerts. I mean, that's incredible for sure. Okay, so I think we have time for one more question. Did you enjoy building things when you were young? Is that something that maybe you knew at a very early age you were interested in engineering? Is that a trait that you had?
I was always the kid taking apart his pens and pencils in school and putting them back together repeatedly. And I loved Legos. So I did always have a tinkering for using my hands. That showed in ceramics a little bit too, and making things with my hands, putting things together. So yes, I've always had kind of that leaning, that bent.
Yeah. So is there anything else that you would like to add before we finish up today, that you would like to share knowledge with students or give any advice?
Yeah, I think the biggest piece of advice I would give is being open to opportunities. I still laugh at how I found TAIT is through my aunt, who was at a concert and saw the name and knew that that's what I was interested in and said, go check them out. And here I am. So it's amazing how, if you're open to opportunities and willing to just try something, knowing that it might not last forever, but it might be awesome. That's a huge piece of advice that will go a long way all your life.
Yeah, I mean, I love that little little story that you told about your aunt. And I think being observant, so many times when we're at concerts or we're out in the real world, if we just look around and observe the people doing the different jobs or the companies that are involved, that will give us so much insight into maybe what our next steps could be or what paths that we could follow just by observing and, like you said, being open to opportunities. So thank you so much for being with us today. We have certainly enjoyed getting your insight, your knowledge into the entertainment industry. I'm going to link TAIT into the comments so that everyone can check out the organization, see what projects, and y'all have an awesome portfolio on there, by the way.
Yeah, check it out. Everyone, there's some great pictures and all kinds of stuff.
Yes, so I'll definitely put that into the comments link. Thank you for all of our viewers. We can't wait to continue this interview series. We have some really cool guests upcoming, so you can check that out on our website as well too. If you have more questions, please feel free to drop them into the comment section or to the chat. We can follow up and get those questions answered as well. So thank you, Dan, for being with us, and thank you to everyone else as well too.
Yeah. Thanks, April. Thanks, everyone.